My name is David Nahodyl. I'm from Blue Feather. We're a FileMaker and technology consulting company in Atlanta. We do lots of FileMaker work, but also a large part of our business is web and mobile applications. We work with businesses to help them find, create, and integrate technology solutions to help make their processes more efficient and effective. One of the big things that we've been doing more and more of recently is integrating FileMaker with web applications. And so today, I'm going to be showing an open source PHP package that we've released, which is designed to work with the Laravel framework for connecting your FileMaker solutions to the web, so you can get data in and out really easily. So let me start sharing my screen, and I'll show what we have here. Okay, is that up for everybody?
Yep.
Okay, great. So the first thing that I want to show on here is our FileMaker solution. So I've made a very simple demo FileMaker file. I have a list of companies here. This is just some randomly generated data that I filled this in with. I'll select this first company on the list, and we can see that the company has people. These are the people who work at this company. It's got a primary key, a name, and a domain. I can go and take a look at these people. These are all faces that I got from This Person Does Not Exist. This is randomly AI generated faces, which is pretty cool. And so these people all have names. It's just a very simple application. They've got names and titles and birthdays and emails and phone numbers. And we can see the company that they work for. So I can flip through some of these records and just see some of the information in here. You know, nothing too exciting. Basic company contact relationships. Not all the people have photos because I had to manually grab them all, but there are a bunch of them that do. And so we'll look at some of these that have them for making everything look nice. All right, so this is the FileMaker database, and we want to get some of this FileMaker data on the web. So I want to show now the web application that I have. This is my IDE. I'm using IntelliJ. Most people use PHP Storm for doing PHP work. It's the same kind of thing. This is a pre-built web application that I've already kind of put some things into to work for our demo. It uses Laravel, and it's just a pretty straightforward application. I'll show you what this looks like. We're not going to go into all of the features of the framework, but to give you an idea, here's the website when it's running. We have company list, company detail, person list, person detail, just like we have in FileMaker. Right now, though, there isn't any information in here. All of this is just hard-coded. So I've hard-coded our company, Blue Feather, in here. I can select it to see the company detail. There's me. Again, this is all hard-coded stuff. I've actually got an image that I've put in here, but this is just a hard-coded path to this image. I can select and see this person's details, but this is it. There's no other information in the database right now. It's not pulling from any data source. This is just HTML that looks nice and has some hard-coded information in it. So we're going to try to connect our FileMaker database to the website to make sure that our companies all get filled in and the people get filled in, and we can see everything that's in FileMaker on here on the web. So to do that in FileMaker, you need to do a little bit of prep for using the Data API. That's how we're going to be getting data in and out of our FileMaker database. This FileMaker database is hosted on FileMaker server, so I've already got it up on there. You can use your existing layouts, but I think best practice is if you're going to be using the Data API, make layouts specifically for your Data API requests. This way you can control which fields are getting sent out of your FileMaker data. You don't have to send everything. You're only going to be sending the fields that you care about and not extra stuff that is really part of the user interface. So I'm going to go and make two new layouts here. I'm going to make one for companies, and I'm going to prefix these so I know that they're for the Data API with DAPI. So that's DAPI for Data API. So I'm going to do DAPI companies, and we'll create that. And I'm just going to put all of the fields on here. And I'll put a nice little label up here. DAPI companies, so we know what this is. And I'm going to do the same thing for people. So I'm going to make a new layout, DAPI people. And I'm just going to put all these fields on here. You can just give it a little label up here at the top so we can look at it and know what we're looking at really clearly. All right, so now I have two layouts dedicated for our data API requests. We're going to use these when we're pulling data out of FileMaker, since we always have to specify a layout that we're using to get our data from. So we've got DAPI people and DAPI companies. And I just dumped the fields on there so that we can get all of them. The next thing we need to do is give ourselves a user who's going to be able to use the FileMaker Data API. So I'm going to go to Manage Security, and I've got my security dialog up here. I'm going to make a new user called dotFMP, and the password, I'm going to say dotFMP on this. Oops. Okay, and we're going to do data entry on here. If I go to the advanced settings, I'm going to go to the privilege sets for the data entry only. And the only thing that I have enabled on here is the FileMaker Data API, because this is the only way that this application is going to be working with FileMaker. So that's really the only privilege that it needs. The authentication isn't going to change anything on this. You can always restrict your privileges more. You should always use the most restrictive permission set possible for your accounts for everything that you do. So we're only doing data API for this user. So I'm going to hit OK on there. And with this, our FileMaker database is now configured correctly. We're able to we're able to use this user, and we've got layouts dedicated for the data API. So that's great. Let's take a look at the web application next. So my web application is right here. These are the folders and files associated with this. This is a Laravel web application. Again, you can find out more information about Laravel at laravel.com. It's a really great framework. I think it makes it really easy to get web applications up and running and to do all the things that you want to do. It's very good for organizing your code, and that's why we're using it here. So like I said before, there's no data that's actually coming in from this. There's no data source associated with this. We're going to use FileMaker for this. The package that we're going to be using to pull our data in is this open source package that we've released. This is called Eloquent FileMaker. You can find this on GitHub with all the installation instructions on it. To install this in your Laravel application, you can use Composer to do that. We have instructions right here. Composer require bluefeather/eloquent-FileMaker. So I'm going to do that right now, and that's going to install this package in our application. So I'm going to say Composer require bluefeather eloquent FileMaker. There it is. Did my history because I've done this before. I don't know if that was a question. All right, so we've installed the package now. It shows up right here in our list. When we run and do the installs, it gets added to our vendor folder. So there it is, bluefeather eloquent FileMaker. This is now installed in our application. We're now able to use this in our app. So the next thing we want to do is configure our data source. So if we take a look down here on the instructions, the next thing is to add this new connection into our databases.php file. And if we go into our config folder, there's database.php. These are some presets for kind of other database types, SQLite, MySQL. We're going to add our FileMaker connection here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this over and put this up at the top. So some important things, we can name it whatever we want. We're calling it FileMaker for clarity. The driver is FileMaker. This is the important thing. This tells it that we're connecting to a FileMaker database through the data API. These other values, we can set some values right here in the config. I'm going to actually do this in our environment file, which we could have different configuration between our local environment and our live environment as an example. So I'm going to open up the environment file now. This is where we say our environment specific configuration. And so instead of using the MySQL connection, we're going to use our FileMaker connection. Our host is going to be fms.bluefeathergroup.com. We don't need a port, so I'm just going to delete that. Our database is called Eloquent Demo. I'm going to put that in here. And our username and password are .fmp and .fmp. Now there's one additional parameter that we can set on here, which is our prefix. And remember how I set up these layouts in FileMaker with this DAPI dash prefix on them for organization's sake. If I put a prefix in here in my configuration, I'm not going to have to enter that when I'm trying to actually get data from these layouts. It's going to know that we're always looking for something that starts with DAPI dash. So I'm going to add that in here now as well. DAPI dash, just like that. And with this, our connection to FileMaker is now configured. Laravel is going to be able to find our data in our database. Let's see. All right, so the next thing to do is to make a PHP class that's going to represent our data in FileMaker. We're going to start with companies. What we need to do is we need to create a model class, and the place where that goes is in app models. So there's one model in here right now, which is user. If our application had users, this is representative of what that user is. We're not dealing with that right now. We're going to make a new model. I can really right-click and just hit new PHP class and then type it in manually, and that'll work. But Laravel comes with a cool utility called Artisan, which I'm going to use to help us get our files in the right spot. So I'm going to run Artisan on here. This can all be done on the terminal, by the way. If I open up a terminal window down here, I can do this like PHP Artisan, make model, and I'm going to make a model called company. And again, this is a model. This is a PHP class that represents our records in FileMaker, our entity in FileMaker. So I'm going to run that, and we should have a new file that just appeared here. And when we use Artisan, it puts a little bit of template stuff in here for us. It's not a lot, but it makes sure that our file goes in the right spot and has some of the basic things that we need. So it's a nice utility to use. I like to run my commands through the IDE's run anything utility. So that's what this box is that's popping up here. It also does some autocomplete stuff, which is pretty cool. All right, so we have our company now, which extends model. This is all the pre-built stuff. Instead of just doing model, though, we're actually going to change this to be an FM model to say specifically that this is for a FileMaker entity. I can delete the old model that's being imported there, and I'm going to import the FM model class instead. So now my IDE did a nice little job auto-completing that path up here for me. Say that we're going to use an FM model for this. Let's try to get some of our company information into our layout now. So let's take a look back at what this looks like here. So I'm going to go to companies, and we're going to pick our first company right here. Company one, this is Blue Feather. This is all hard-coded in. So how does this work? How am I actually seeing this page? This is a model view controller type app. So our model is going to be company, and we're going to work on that. Our views are stored in resources, views, and company detail right here. Blade, it has this blade.php extension on it. This is a templating language for Laravel called Blade. But essentially, we get to write HTML and then throw a little bit of PHP code in the middle, and it does some magic and makes everything work. So we're going to look at that. So this is the HTML for this page, and we can see on this page the company name right up here in the title area. This is called Blue Feather. That's what we see up there. The website is bluefeathergroup.com. I can make a change right on here. I'm going to call this Green Feather just to show you that I changed that, and ta-da, now it gets updated and it shows Green Feather instead. So this is just HTML essentially that I'm working with. But we want to make sure that this is getting our actual data from FileMaker. This is the HTML where we're going to have to make the changes for that. So that's our view. Our model is company, and our controller goes in the HTTP folder down here. So our controller is called company controller. I have one pre-made already. And we define a route in Laravel, which says when we type in our address companies/1, what do we want to actually see here? Our routes are defined in this web.php folder, and we can see I've already defined companies to be our company list, which is what we see here. And if we do company/some ID, it's going to load up our company controller and call the get method of the controller. So if I go to and click on one of these, I go company/1, we're going to go into this route right here on line 24. If this text is all small, by the way, let me know. I can zoom in on here. Hopefully you guys can see all this. Or if I'm going too fast, please speak up. let me know. I'm kind of breezing through some of the Laravel configuration stuff to focus more on how we can work on FileMaker, but let me know if you have questions on things. All right, so we're going to up here, companies/1. That is going to match up to our companies/ID, and we have this in squiggly braces to show that this is just some value that we're going to get. We're going to go to the company controller get method. So let's jump back to the company controller and see what this get method does. It receives the ID as a parameter and it returns a view, company detail, which is our blade file, company-detail right there. So that's the path it's taking. We put in a request, goes to the route. The route calls a controller function, and the function returns a view. The idea behind this is separation of concerns. You do your business logic, your views in different places. It helps keep everything organized. Your view is only concerned with showing the data that has been passed. All right, so here's our company detail. We want to actually get a company based on the ID that we've passed in here. So like if we're looking at companies/1, we shouldn't be seeing Blue Feather here. Blue Feather's not in the database. We should be seeing company with the ID of 1. So let's look in FileMaker and see what that is. Let's open this companies layout here. All right, companies1 is Wikibox, and their domain is printfriendly.com. So that's what we should be seeing on this page when we're looking at here. Let's do the configuration now to get the data from FileMaker. In the company controller, I'm going to set a new variable here called company. And I want this to find the company with the ID that we've passed in. So if I've done companies/1, our ID value is going to have 1, and we want to find the company with the ID of 1. Then I want to pass this company object to the layout. I have to do this and make a data variable here. I'm going to say the data key is going to be company. And the value is going to be our company variable. This is our company object that we just created a second ago on line 17. And I'm going to pass this data to our view to make it available in the HTML in our blade file. I'm going to jump back to our blade file now. And I should be able to read that company data here to show it on the web. So instead of Blue Feather, I want to show the company name. So if I look on here, the name is Wikibox. The field name is name. I'm going to go in here and replace Blue Feather, take this out. I put in the double curly braces, and I'm going to say company name. Save that. Let's take a look. And that gets updated. We're getting data from the database that quickly. It was very easy to get that in. I only had to create one new file and configure our connection to FileMaker. And we're now getting data from the database. Let's fill in some of the other values on here. The domain is another one we can fill in really easily, right? I'm going to take out bluefeathergroup.com, and then I'm going to say company domain, and I want the link to work too, so I'm going to actually put this in our A tag here. Company domain, save that. Let's take a look. Printfriendly.com. That looks like that's matching what's in our database now, right? Printfriendly.com. If I click on this, it takes us to printfriendly.com. It's all randomly generated stuff. I don't know where these things are going. Let's try another one. So if I change our route at the top, instead of 1, if I go to 2, I should see company 2 in here now. So what's company 2? With the ID of 2, this is PhotoBean. So this should be PhotoBean. Let's see, do we get PhotoBean here? Hey, look at that. We're getting PhotoBean. So we've now just made it so our website, we can view any of the records that we want just by putting the ID of the record up here in the URL. Fantastic. Let's go back to company 1. So that was really cool. That was great. Let's do the same thing for people. Let's go to person. We've got a hard-coded person in here. This is person 1. That's not really who we want to see. Person 1. This is Mikhail Lugo. All right. Again, we've got just a whole bunch of randomly generated information in here. When we're looking at person 1, this should be M. Lugo, Mikhail Lugo, and that should be his information. Well, that's not what we're getting right now. Let's do the same thing for a person. I'm going to do artisan, make model person. And it makes a new file for me in my models. This is the class that we're going to use to get people. Let's take a look at the routes again to see where this is going to be calling things. If I'm looking at a specific person, that's this, I'm getting people and then an ID number that matches what we have in the browser, people/1. And we're calling the person controller class and the get method. So let's jump to that person controller get method. We're returning this view, person detail. Let's find this view. There it is. Oh, I already had it highlighted because I had that highlighted on there. So person detail. Here's the blade file for this, our HTML. You can see the person's name is David Nahodyl. Just to show you that it works, I can type in David C. Nahodyl on here, and that's updating our HTML. Great. So we're looking at the right spot. Let's update this now so that we get a real person from the database. Back to person. Sorry, where's our person controller? We're going to do the same thing that we did for company. We're going to say person equals person, person find by the ID. Have to import the person class. Yep. And then now I'm going to pass this as data to our view. Let's see here. So now that I'm passing, oops, yeah, we don't have anything in here. Now that I'm passing the data to our view, I can go into our person detail and start filling in some of these values. So instead of saying David Nahodyl, I want to actually have the person name here. Let's see if this will show that. Oops, parameters and value. What did I just pass in here? Oops, person controller. Oh, I forgot to change our person to be an FM model instead of a model. Sorry about that. All right. So back into our blade file. We want to have the person name. Actually, name isn't a real field in here, is it? Name, we have name first, we have name first, last C. That's really what we should be showing. Let's do name first, last C. Name first, last C is our calculation field for the person's full name. And hey, look at that. So that was really quick. We just set up a new FM model class, found the ID using this find method, person find ID, to get this person object back. It comes back with all of the attributes. And now I'm passing the person to my view, my person detail view. And now in my view, in my HTML, I can just drop in values from our FileMaker records. Let's do the email address too. Person email. Great. The company. We'll come back to the company in a minute. What else do we have in here? We've got the first name. Let's change this to be person name first. Oops, name first. Matching the field names in FileMaker. In FileMaker, same thing here. Name underscore first, name underscore last. Let's get these in. Name last. And phone is down here. Let's put the phone in, person phone. And the email is right here. Let's change that out, person, email, and then our title goes down here. Save. Great. Look at that. Everything's filled in. We got that person's full information other than the company, which we're going to come back to in a minute. But we can go from person 1 to person 2. There is one more issue I'm seeing here, which is the person's photo isn't right. We have a container here in FileMaker. That's what we want to see. And I'm sure everyone is really excited to look like me, but I feel like it's not really reflective of who they are. So maybe we'll fix that. All right. So I've kind of hard-coded in here this particular image file that I've uploaded. Let's fix this one. We're going to go to person profile because we have a container in FileMaker. Photo, person photo. And that should be our person's photo. Oh, wait, this isn't working. What's happening here? Why did we get all these other ones, but the photo's not working? It's a container field. Yeah. So why isn't this working? Well, let's take a look here. So when we get a container, when we get text, we get the text value back. When we get a container, we're getting a URL to a one-time use resource, a one-time use URL for getting that container data. And in FileMaker 19.3.1, they changed the security on the way getting FileMaker container data out of the data API works. When you get a URL like this, it's only usable one time. The first time a browser visits it, it gets a cookie set, and then it revisits that URL and sends the cookie with it. And if it doesn't have that cookie, it gets blocked. So if I try to open this URL directly, I get this 401 unauthorized. So this isn't going to work for me to get the container data out. This actually turned out to be a problem for a lot of different things, including Claris Connect. And so in 19.3.2, Claris added a command onto the FMS admin command line utility for FileMaker Server, which switches this back to the way it worked before, which is essentially once you get the URL, that URL can be repeatedly used, and you don't have to get this cookie set, refresh, redirect action happening in your browser. So let's go. We want to show the container data directly from FileMaker here. So let's go on to our FileMaker server and change the way this works. So I'm going to go. This is my FileMaker server here. I'm opening this up. Hopefully, you guys can all see the remote desktop. I'm going to open up PowerShell, and there's a command that we have to run out. If I zoom in, do you guys see that at all? Does that zoom for you?
Yeah,
I'm zooming in.
Yeah, we zoom in, or I can zoom in.
Okay. Maybe I don't know. That doesn't work from my side. All right. Let me put the command in here, though. This is going to be. All right. So we have to do FMS admin set server prefs authenticated stream equals 2. 1 is the default, which is the secure way where you get it one time and then it sets the cookie and then it does the refresh and then that link is essentially dead. 2 is the way that it worked up until FileMaker 19.3.1. So I'm going to set it back to this older use case, or to this older security style, because that's what for our use case, we need to have it available because we're showing it directly on the web. So I'm going to put in my credentials on here. Let's see here. Paste in my password. All right. Okay, so now we've changed authenticated stream to 2. The default is 1. It's now 2. Let's take a look at this again. And there we go.
Great.
We just set that container as the source for the image, and that's all we had to do to get this to load up and to show our container data as well, straight from FileMaker. So just to take a look back here again, here's our image tag. We've got our class. Our source is now the container field for the image source. And we can say some alt text on here. You know, this is profile picture, right? And then this works. Once we've adjusted that security setting in FileMaker Server, we're able to use it as a source for our image files. So that is really useful. If you've got container data that you want to put out there, that's a great way to do it. As an alternative, if you don't want to change that security setting, you can move the files up to your web server, or we also have a product available called Cloud Container, which lets you store your container data in S3 with a native style FileMaker interface and some enhanced container features. That'll also allow you to generate one-time use URLs that you can embed in your web page too, and it keeps your data secure. All right, so we got the person in here. Now there was one more field which isn't working quite properly, and that is the company name. And this is coming from related data. Like we don't have that in our FileMaker record. If we're looking at a person, we see the foreign key of the company, but that's not enough, right? We need to actually get the company that this person belongs to. So let's make a change to our person model. So remember, our model class represents our FileMaker record and tells our application how to get the data from this. So if we have a person, we know that there's a company, we can use Laravel's Eloquent Relationships feature to specify that this person belongs to a single company. So I'm going to make a
okay.
function here, public function
Weird.
company.
Oh, is that a mistake?
And this I'm going to say return belongs to company.
Do we need to put the oven on for?
I think somebody's talking a lot in here. I don't know who that is.
Paul,
But
can
if
you
you can mute
kindly
yourself.
Yeah, Paul, can you kindly mute yourself, please? Sorry.
If you have questions, I'm happy to answer questions, so do speak up. But yeah, just try to make sure there's not too much background noise. All right, so I've made a public function company now, and this we're going to use to get the related company. And this is all we have to do for this. We're going to say that this person belongs to a company. And we're using this Laravel function. We say this belongs to. That establishes the relationship between person and company. And Laravel is smart enough for us to know that, or Laravel is smart enough to know that it should be looking for a field called company ID to determine this relationship. If your field names don't match that pattern, that's okay. You can specify what your foreign key is, and it'll use that to establish the relationship. But because I've followed some specific naming conventions, I don't even have to specify that. I just say it belongs to a company. It's good enough. Person belongs to a company. Let's start using our related company data. If we go back to our Blade file for our person's profile, here where we have the company, instead of saying blue feather, I'm going to take this out and I'm going to say person company to say we want the related company data name. And the link here, I'm using a special route function to say that it should go to a specific page. I'm going to say person company ID to set the link to the company page. So hit save. Let's take a look at this. And there it is. Look, Mikhail is showing up here, and now he's got the correct company data. We've established the relationship between our models in one really simple function with one line of code in it. And now we're able to get the company's name just by saying person, company, name. That is enough for us to get the related data. So I think that's really great. Because I also updated this link, this A tag right here, if I hover over this, oops, let's hide this little thing down here. At the bottom, you can see very small letters. It's going to company 76. So our link is actually working now too. We're being linked to the correct company from here. So I think this is just really fantastic. There's Skyview. We can click on that and go straight to it. Really, really easy with Laravel to establish relationships between your data, just using that belongs to function. We should probably do this the other way around now, right? Like if we go to Skyview, it still has our hard-coded person in here. So let's fix that. We're going to go to our company model. And before on a person, we said the person has a company, it belongs to a company, right? For a company has staff. And we want to say that this company has many people. So we say return this has many person dot person colon class there. All right, so now we're saying the staff, we're defining this relationship saying this company has many people. This lets us work in the other direction. This is a one-to-many relationship that we've just defined. In our company detail, let's look down and see where we have our row. So this is it right here. We can see there's this table row. That's this table on our layout. David Nahodyl is defined there. Oops, sorry, adjusting my windows here to make this easier to see. All right, so there's David Nahodyl. We want to fill this in with the real people. And we want to have one row for every person that belongs to this company. If we look in FileMaker and we go to our company detail, let's go to company 1, we can see there are a whole bunch of people here, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 people who work at Wikibox. We should see all 8 of them here. Right now we're only seeing 1. So we're going to use Laravel's Blades for each method right here. So I'm going to do say for each. And because we've defined this relationship to the company, we say that the relationship has staff. We've already passed in company into here, into our Blade template, right? We're reading the company name, the company domain. I'm going to say company staff. For each company staff, we say as person. This is enough to say we're going to do this for each staff member. and for each down here. We've just set up a loop. We're going to write one of these out for every person in the company. I'm just going to save this and see what this looks like. Great, we've got 8 Davids now, or how many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess we have 5 Davids. How many people do we have? All right, we'll get the right number. I think we're limiting this to 5 right now. So for each staff as person, we want to show one of the actual people here on our layout. So let's change the profile picture from this asset. We're going to go to person photo, the name, not David Nahodyl for all these, person name, email address, person email, just like we did on all the other layouts, our phone number, person phone, and person title. And we also want to make sure that when we click these, we go to the right person. So instead of just saying 1, I'm going to do the person ID. Right. Perfect. Let's save that and reload. Oops, syntax error. Right here. Let's see that. Okay. There we go. Oh, sorry, we're looking at company 76. Let's swap back to company 1, so it's the same as what we're looking at. Here we go, Wikibox. And we've got all 8 of our people here. Instead of being 8 Davids, now we have all the people with all of their direct information. Oops, name, this needs to be name, first, last, C. Let's fix that. There we go. And so that easily, we established a relationship, and then we took our template, our blade template, and did a for each loop in it so that for every person, every related person, we wrote out one full row for all of those people. So look, now we can go in here, we can click on the people, see the person's details, click and go back to the company, go down to another person. We can type in any number that we want in here. Let's go to person 3. We can see it. We've essentially just recreated what we have. Oh, I have to do our company list in FileMaker. We've got all the data coming out of here now. Sorry, let's go to the list views I haven't updated yet. But yeah, so here's our FileMaker data. Wikibox, all the people, same pictures, same information in both places. We've got it on the web. If we would probably want to, maybe we have this as a website, or we have this behind a login for someone to come in and see their staff. But that's it. We've tied our FileMaker data source to, our web application to FileMaker as our data source, and we're pulling all of our data from there. If I change one of these people, if I say Bard, I'm going to call, instead of Bard, I'm going to call her Stephanie, right? Stephanie Townsend now. I reload the page. It gets changed immediately. We're pulling all these data live from the Data API. Laravel has some great caching features, which I definitely recommend that you take advantage of to limit the hits against your FileMaker database using the Data API. Using caching will significantly reduce the data that gets counted against your data limits. So definitely pay attention to that. All right, so this is cool. Let's just, we'll do the same thing for our company list real quick. For company, we'll go back to our company controller index. I'm thinking about this. We have a lot of companies in here. How many companies do we have? We have 203. I can do it. We'll try it first. Okay, so I'll say companies. I think we're going to be limited by the Data API to 100. Company all. Then I'm going to pass in. I'm going to make a little data variable here. I just feel like this isn't going to be great, but we're gonna try this. And then we'll go to our company list. Here's our company blade file. We're going to do the same thing that we did for the people, which is find our row. Here's our row for the company right here. We're going to do a for each loop for each companies as company, and our for each, and for each. And then we're going to put the company name here. and replace our link. Since enough we're just going to one, we're going to go to the company ID. All right, well, we'll take a look. It worked. That's a lot of names to show up in this list. I'm not totally happy with that. This would be much better with pagination, I think. Let's go back to our company controller. So here, instead of getting all companies, let's paginate and get 10 companies at a time. See what this looks like. Oh, good. That did a really nice job. Look, we've only got 10 companies on here. I feel like this is much more manageable, right? This is what people are going to be expecting to see. No one wants to see a list of 200 companies. Maybe we'll make some find features and things like that. But we'll go to the company list down here. And down at the bottom, here is our whole table here. This part, I'm going to stick this below this. I'm going to say companies links. Now, this is a special function in Laravel for displaying links for pagination. If I put that down here, now we've got our 10-person list and our pages down here at the bottom with the next and previous buttons. We have the total number of results on here, and we can now paginate through our companies and just click to go to the one that we want to go to. Let's go back to page 1. We want to go to Jabbersphere, click on Jabbersphere. Hey, here's Jabbersphere. These people don't have pictures. We'll go back to Wikibox. Oh, you know what? The website's not fixed. Let's fix that website. Where does it say? bluefeathergroup.com. Let's change that. Company domain. And we will also put this on the actual link. Right, there we go. We can do the same thing with people, but I'm going to skip that for now. This is great. Wikibox print friendly. Got a nice pagination view. In FileMaker, you know, we see this as one big list. But on the web, pagination is a little bit more standard way of displaying those things. So that was really easy for us to establish these relationships, to get the data in, and then even to paginate it. Laravel took care of a lot of that. And because we've got this Eloquent FileMaker class, Laravel's native features for getting data, getting relationships, doing pagination, you know, limiting the number of records we get back, it works with FileMaker just like it would with, you know, any other sort of SQL-based database. We've got all that stuff kind of figured out and built into it, so you can just use Laravel like you would normally use Laravel. Or if you're not using Laravel, try it out and get it connected. You get your FileMaker data in there really easily. All right, so this is great. We've done lots of reading. We should probably try writing some data to see what that looks like. Let's find one of our people in here. Let's look at, let's actually look at person 1. Well, just, oh, do we have Stephanie Townsend up already? Go to Wikibox. Here's Stephanie Townsend. All right. So we want to edit Stephanie. So far, all we've done is read data. Now we want to make changes to some of these data. The way you do this on the web is with forms and submitting forms. We have the form fields here. They're already being filled in with all of her values. If we go to our person detail, we can see all of our inputs. If I search for input on here, input, so you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all these different inputs, and we're pre-filling them with whatever values we want in there. Person name last, person name first. We've got the form fields in here. The name of the form fields match the field names for simplicity's sake. So we've got our first form field's name is name first, and that's the first name. Matches the field name, name last, email, phone, everything's in here. The names just match up for simplicity. So if we want to actually do this and make a change in here, and instead of Stephanie, we want to call her Caroline Townsend, we need to have a way to send this data back to FileMaker. All of these fields are in a form. Up here is our form element. We're going to do a post with this. There's no action for this right now. If I hit update, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't work. We haven't defined this. But let's define an update process. I'm going to go back to our web routes. And here we have people/ID for getting. Let's do one for submitting data to update our records in FileMaker. So instead of doing route get, I'm going to do route post. People/ID. And then we're going to, we'll make a new method in our person controller class. And instead of saying get on here, we're going to do, update, because we want to update one of these. I'm going to name this route just for simplicity. So I'm going to call this name person update. All right, let's go back to our form and say when we submit, it should go to this new route that we just defined, this post route, to update our person. So back to our person detail blade. So for our action, I'm going to use Laravel's little route helper here, route person update, and we want to pass as that parameter to it. This is just the second part of that, right? The person's ID. So I'm going to say person ID. And now if we reload this and actually submit this, it's going to do a post to something that doesn't exist, but it's posting now, right? The method doesn't exist. That's great. Let's go to our person controller and define our update function. So public function update with this ID. Person equals, I'm going to do the same thing as we did here before, person find to get our person. And now we want to start reading these values and setting them to save them in FileMaker. So we're going to update the person's name first, and that should be equal to, oops, sorry, we have to do one more thing in here. We have to say request. There we go. Our first parameter is going to be a request that we're going to read some values from. So we're going to set the name first to be our request input name first, and person name last equals request input name last. Let's just test this before we go any further. Let's see here. I'm going to generate a random name for this person, or who's someone who's in our group here. So we've got a Magali. How do you say your last name? June, maybe. I'm gonna type it in here. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. So we have Magali June. I'm probably saying that horribly. I apologize. I'm unfamiliar with both your first name and your last name. I'm very sorry. All right, so I've put in the name on here. I'm going to hit update on this. Oh, sorry, this isn't finished yet. So we're setting these fields. We're going to save our changes back in FileMaker. So we're going to say person save. And then once we've saved it, we're going to redirect the person to our view. Oops, route. Person detail. Person ID as our parameter on there. Great. All right, let's see if this works. I've updated the name on here, Stephanie Townsend. Oops, I've got it set to refresh automatically as I make changes here. June update. And look at that. Where is it in FileMaker? Our values changed in FileMaker too. It's that easy to get our data back into here. Person name first equals whatever, name last equals whatever, save, done. And redirect them back to the view page. I'm going to put her name back on here. Stephanie Townsend, update. Let's watch a change in FileMaker as we do this. There it goes. Done. Super, super easy for updating all of these values. Creating records works the same way. If we want to create a new person, I'm just going to type it in here as an example. We can say person equals new person. That creates a new person. And then we can set some values in here. Person name first equals David. Person, name last equals Nahodyl. So now when I update this, I'm actually going to be saving a new person at the same time, just to show you guys how this will happen in here. I'm going to hit update on this person. We're not really going to change anything for Stephanie Townsend, but it's going to create a new record in our database. So let's take a look at the last record that has been created in here. Oops, did we, nope, this is our placeholder one. There we go. Here's the one we just created. Our new blank person, just from doing this update. before actually making that happen, that was just as a demo to show you how easy it is to also create new records in FileMaker. Deleting is the same thing. If you want to delete something, you just say delete instead of whatever you need on there, and that'll actually delete that person out. Super, super easy. Okay, so one other cool thing that I want to show, so we can use Eloquent FileMaker to run scripts and everything like that. One other cool thing that I want to show in here just as a Laravel feature is something called route model binding. What I've had to do when we get a person is to take the ID and then find them by the ID. I wanted to show this because this is a really easy way to get the records that you're looking for. If you ever have this as a parameter or something as a form, it's that easy to find the correct person or whatever that you're looking for. But since we know that this is the first thing that we're going to do, we can take advantage of this route model binding feature, which will take our path, get that ID value from it, and then automatically pull up the specific person that we're looking for. So I'm going to call this input, instead of it just being a string that's coming in here, I'm going to say this is going to be a person. And for clarity's sake, I'm just going to rename the variable to person. I don't actually need this line on here anymore. I can take that out. And this is going to be enough for Laravel to know that when we specify this number 29 up here, we want person with the ID 29. I'm going to match the name here just to keep this consistent. So when you say people/person, whatever, this is actually going to be smart enough to know that as soon as it gets in here, that's the person we want. Let's look at person 29 again, just to make sure this is still working. It is. I didn't even have to look this person up anymore. I just say when I type in people/29, by putting the person up here, I'm saying I want to be working with a person record. Go and find it for me before I even get to my code, before I even have to start writing anything. I've got my debugger on. So if I reload this and look at the breakpoint that I've just set on here for data and look at my values, this person variable is already set. It is an app model person. It has all of these attributes. I can see all of the attributes that are available here in my debugger: birthday, company ID, creation account, timestamp, email ID, all of these things. Super, super convenient to have this route model binding. It makes your code just fill itself in, which is really nice. Eloquent FileMaker is great for working with FileMaker data. As we all know, FileMaker has a very specific data format, which is different from other data formats that you might find in SQL-style databases. Eloquent FileMaker will allow you to use PHP date and datetime objects, and will automatically convert those date properties into FileMaker's specific format for that, and it'll do it in reverse. So if we want to show on the person detail here, I'm going to jump to this person detail layout again, where we're showing their email right now up here at the top, btownsends@yandex.ru. Where are we showing the email? Up here at the top. If I want to show their birthday, the field name is birthday. I'm going to swap this out. I can put this in here. This is actually a date time object that is coming in, because it's a date object in FileMaker, and we can use PHP's date functions to format that however we want. And then when we write it back, it automatically puts it back into FileMaker in the FileMaker acceptable date format that the server is expecting it in. I just said that there's been a bunch of chat that I haven't missed, so I'm really sorry, guys. Let me look through some of the chat and try to answer some questions before we get to the end of our time here. Let's see here. So I'm scrolling back up to the top. So hopefully, yeah, Laravel is a great framework to use with PHP. Symfony is an alternative for that. So how do you secure your FMREST password on the web server so that compromising your web server doesn't compromise your FileMaker data? That is an excellent question. So as you see, I've put it in the env here. An env file, so there's two reasons why it's in here. So the first is an env file gets excluded from your version control. So it doesn't go into your repository in your Git repo. Similarly, it shouldn't be deployed to your live web server. Your live web server should have its own env. But again, same thing. You don't want to have just like a file sitting on there that has all your passwords on it. So what do you do? Well, the env is actually a system and PHP environment variables. A lot of platforms will allow you to specify environment variables that you want as part of your application deployment. So for example, if you're using AWS, Elastic Beanstalk's a really great way to deploy applications like this. As part of your application config, you can specify env variables, which if you want to get even more secure, can come from a secure storage location in AWS for passwords and things like that. And then it writes it not to a file, but into the configuration of the deployed server. So it's just in memory in the OS. It stops it from showing up as just being a file that can be read out. And it's only available to your application itself. So you can still read. Your environment variables are actually coming from the environment, not from a .env file. That keeps your credentials secure. Yes, and I put them in the, and so I want to clarify too, this is not in the web root folder. So the web root, the source root of the web application is actually the public folder. It's a subdirectory of this. So if you go to the root of your site, you're looking in the public folder here, which just has CSS images, some JavaScript, an htaccess file, and an index.php. So it's outside of the root anyway. So, you know, the only way for someone to gain access to that file is to really compromise your server and to have administrative control over it and to get into, to just be able to browse any sorts of files that are stored anywhere on that machine. They can't just like type an address into your .env and see it because it's not in the public directory. dotFMP Berlin website is running on Laravel. See, there you go. Very cool. I like that. Let's see here. Environment variables of servers compromised. They're easy to view. If they're in the file, yes. If they're configured, it's harder to get that, but it has to be in memory somewhere. And so if you do your application config and configure the server at the OS level to have that environment variable, that protects that more. So it's not just a file. Yeah, and you have to have, it has to be there somewhere in some form. The server has to know it, and it has to be readable. Otherwise, your API calls can't work. That's the same as every application. You know, even with OAuth, you have to have an application key that you're going to be refreshing. The users don't get this, though. It is possible, if you wanted to do this, you could have your users, if you had to log into your site, log in with the username and password, and then actually use their credentials to receive a token from FileMaker, and then it never gets stored beyond just what's in memory at the time for their specific request or for the duration of their session. But generally, it's considered safe to have a local env file that's in a secure storage location, or to load it up as your app, as your server configuration, as your app config in something like Elastic Beanstalk. Let's see here. How does the person find the company similar to eSQL? So the find function that how does the person find the company? Okay, so in our person model, we defined this function company, which uses this fancy Laravel function called belongs to. And when you use this belongs to function, we're telling Laravel that this entity person belongs to, has a single company. The parent record is a company, and there should be a foreign key in this record that points to that parent record. Okay. Because of naming conventions, Laravel is able to figure out both what the foreign key is in your current record in the person table, as well as what the primary key is in your related table. So by default, it looks for ID as primary keys always, but you can change that just by setting a protected primary key equals whatever you want. You can set that if it's going to be like company ID, right? actually where I'm person. So I could say, if I use person ID as my primary key, I can set this protected value up here in the class as a protected property. And that lets Laravel know what the actual primary key is. So even if you don't follow naming conventions at all, you can set any of these keys and define any of these relationships so that it'll figure it out. Similarly on here, if we didn't use company underscore ID as our foreign key name, I could call this, maybe it's company ID instead as my foreign key. I can type that in here. Now Laravel knows what foreign key to use and where to look for the primary key on the other side. If I did ID company, it's another really common one in FileMaker, right? I can specify them on here. If I don't want to use primary keys and foreign keys, I can even define what the owner, what's calling the owner key here is on the other one. So we can link to any field we want defining this relationship. I could make this relationship based on company name if I want. Now it's going to try to match my person's ID underscore company field to the name field on the company table. So just like when you're drawing those lines across in FileMaker, you can specify whatever relationships you want and then you put them in there, it'll figure them all out for you, which is really nice. Let's see here. Can you change naming conventions? Yep. So hopefully that answered that question. For any of these naming conventions, you can override them whatever you want. For the tables, it's able to figure them out by person. It's looking for a layout that has the word people that's named people. And because I specified a prefix, it's going to do dappy-people. It does this conversion automatically. I actually don't like that it uses plurals for that. So what I usually do is I override their naming conventions and say table equals person. Oops. I always feel like table names should be singular. Now I've defined the table in my database, and now it knows what it is. I'm just going to use this for all the requests and have everything figured out. What if I don't want to load, oops, let's see, where's the question shifted on here? What if I don't want to load the whole company record, but just pull a single related field on the layout company name? Yep, that works fine. When you're specifying your name, if I go into my layout on person, on my dappy people, I can just place that on here, and that works fine. I can go I don't have any relationships set up in this database right now. But, oh, I do, company to person. Okay, there we go. Yes, you can do this. And if you put this in here, company name, this field will now show up as part of your person request as a person field, and you just name it exactly as you said in the question. It'd be company : person. We don't have to establish an actual relationship. Now we're just always getting the company name with the person record that we're getting. And remember, that's how FileMaker works. Any fields that you put on this layout will always come back when you're getting person data from this layout. If you want to be really optimal with your performance, you can define a whole bunch of layouts that only have very limited field sets. So you're only getting a small portion of your data back at the time. Like, I don't really care about the creation timestamp and the modification timestamp on here, right? Like, I'm not using those. I could take those off here. And now the data API is going to be returning less data. Let's see here. If I put person, company name, PHP is going to freak out. I think it will actually handle this here. We can do this as a demo. Person, where's our person detail? Person, first name, last year. Let's go to our, whoops, I broke everything because I renamed all of our standards here. Let's change this back. All right, person detail, name of non-object, where are we? Person detail, name. Person data, person detail, name. 123.
As written, you think I needed the foreign key ID company instead of company ID somewhere in the person controller.
I think in here I specified company name because I removed it. Oh yeah, so I'd have to put this in, I think I have to define this as an attribute. Yeah, we can, how do we need to get this? Oh, it has to pull from, it goes person, you know what, I think it is still gonna be like this. Let me check the docs here. But yes, you can pull related fields. I'll have to check in here the naming convention for that. But yes, you can put it in there. I don't remember how to specify that off the top of my head right now. So sorry about that. Yes, but yes, you can do company name and pull the related data without having to load the whole related record. The data returned defined by the fields in the FMP layout. Yep. Create another layout with minimal fields, 2 calls to FM. What if I run into naming conflicts, naming from person to name from company? That's fine. We can have company name and person company name, like we had before, where we had company name down here, and we can have person name. We're looking at 2 different entities, so just it's fine. Just like if you had the fields in FileMaker, it's not a problem at all. Although I shouldn't change that on the thing while it's trying to run. Probably name of not, okay, I broke the company relationship. Let's go back to the person. Company belongs to, yep, can't do that. That's not right. I think someone mentioned that. Thank you. There we go. Yeah, name the foreign key ID company. Yep, thank you for commenting on that. All right. Any other questions? You can connect to multiple FileMaker databases at a time. It doesn't have to just be one. You can specify different data sources for different models. So I could pull person from one database and company from another database, and they can have totally separate credentials. You can run scripts. You can get data and do requests just by doing kind of a base query instead of actually pulling data from a model. If you want to, the information for that, there's an FMP, or sorry, an FM alias that you can call to just get data or run scripts without having to actually deal with a model. I don't have CORS issues, not on this, because I'm not doing any CORS requests. So on this particular application, that's why there aren't any problems with that. But you can always, if you are doing something where you are pulling data sources and doing queries across domains, you can set your server to allow that when you're giving your responses. Like if you're going to use this as a custom API, where you're going to be, let's say your website's hosted at mycompany.com, and you have an API at api.mycompany.com, but you have another application at acme.com that's going to be pulling data from your API and making a request from there through the browser, through AJAX requests. Then you can set your headers to allow that origin, and then that takes care of it. Laravel will assist you with that, but you can set your headers and your responses to cover CORS issues. This is also a very simple web application that I've done, so I haven't done all the complexities of logging in and everything like that too, and the full sets of security. The purpose of this is really just to show the data getting from FileMaker onto the web. So yes, there are lots of other security things that we could do for this, like protecting all the data behind a login. We could make this use like view on the front end and do AJAX requests to hit an API. There are lots of other complexities that we can add on here. We've used this package on our own client portal, portal.bluefeathergroup.com, which allows people to log in and pay their bills online because we have invoices in a FileMaker database. We actually have an open source version of that that's available for everyone that uses Eloquent FileMaker. If you have an application where you have invoices and you want your clients to be able to pay online, if you look at our Blue Feather Group page on GitHub, we have our web portal starter kit, which is built out of the box to work with the sample invoices FileMaker application. And if you have that unconfigured and just point to it, it'll work. You just set up your server and your credentials for it. But you can customize this really easily to work with your own invoices database just by changing some table names and some field names. It'll load up and link your user logins. Your clients can create accounts on your site. They'll be linked to email addresses in your database. It'll find just their invoices and display them for them, and allow you to take payments either through Stripe or Braintree. This is a pre-made, out-of-the-box web portal starter kit. If you don't want to use it for using invoices, it's only 2 files that has anything to do with invoices, I think. You can use it for anything you want. If you want to send reports, It's really easy to point that over if you want to show people in companies like we did in our demo file here. It's really easy to customize this to show or display any sort of data that you want. This uses, again, Laravel with, for the people who are interested in this, the inertia Jetstream package. So the front end is actually done in Vue with inertia instead of Blade templates. So if you're comfortable working in Vue, it's really easy to customize. If you're not comfortable with JavaScript or PHP, you can still get this thing working. All you have to do is edit the config file to point it to your database, and it'll match the fields based on the values that you put in the config. So I definitely recommend checking that out. And if you want to, like I said, if you want to start with something where it's pre-configured for, the old sample invoices file that was just one of the prepackaged things that came with FileMaker is all set for that. All right, it's 2:15, so I think my time is about up. Thank you very much, everyone. And if you have any questions about anything, feel free to email me. If you need any help with Eloquent FileMaker, or if you find any bugs, send me an email. David@bluefeathergroup.com is my email address. My name is David Nahodyl. Our company is Blue Feather. And again, my email is david@bluefeathergroup.com. I'm always happy to get on video calls with people. If you get any bugs with any of these things, let me know. I'll get them fixed for you right away. If you have any use cases that we haven't thought of, or you run into some issues, we want to get this package up and make sure that it's fantastic for everyone. So, try out the web portal starter, and we're happy to help with anything, with any questions that you've got. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, David, thank you very much for your very enlightening and fun presentation. At least I learned quite a few things I never understood when looking into the files of the website. And luckily we recorded this so I can have a look after this because I'm slow at thinking or slow at receiving, and sometimes rewinding the way how you quickly code is definitely a good thing. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I have to mention to all the others, David, you was the one who brought me into SSL things, your SSL certificate routine for Windows made me digging deeper into that. So I'm not sure. Thank you for that. Or others would say I could blame you for that, for me wasting even more time on Windows certificate.
I'm glad that's useful for you too. If other people don't know what you're talking about, we have a Let's Encrypt renewal script that you can install on a Windows server that'll get you a free SSL certificate from Let's Encrypt. It's quick and easy to deploy. I think it's probably less useful these days than when we first made it, because there are lots of cheaper SSL certificate options out there. We get a lot from SSLs.com, where you can get an SSL certificate for like $17 or something. We get wildcards from them now for 5 years for $150 or something like that for a wildcard certificate. So, it's a lot cheaper to buy them, but still, if you're going to spin up a dev server and you need some good SSL certificates on it, you can run that and it'll get it up there for a short time. It's great.
Yeah, and thank you for that. It certainly is still a helpful resource.